Hello and welcome to the Sacred Seed podcast. My name is Melanie and I'm sitting down with Alana today. Together we are the co-founders and co-creators of Alchemia. For today's episode, we're going to get into the conversation around why you might want to choose ceremony. Why go to ceremony? Why go to a retreat? Why go to a plant medicine retreat? Why remove yourself from your life, put yourself in a situation with strangers potentially, and immerse yourself in an experience that is far outside of your norm? What is the point to all of this? A lot of these conversations can get very specific and very nuanced really quickly. And this is an opportunity for us to look at some of the larger motivators and the overarching theme that is going for retreat. It's definitely something that is emerging in popularity, and this is going to be about an hour discussion of us looking at that at large. Why do we go to ceremony? What benefits are there? And what does that look like for us on our spiritual journey? How does it help our spiritual expansion and all of that beautiful evolution, oh so goodness that can happen? Before we get into the episode, I do want to let you know that we have our applications open for Once Upon a Mushroom, Return of the Inner Child, and the link to all of that goodness will be in the description below. Whether you are listening to us on Spotify or if you can see us here on YouTube, by all means, hit the subscribe button, follow along, like and share. It helps us get this podcast out to those who might need some insight into ceremony, personal development, spiritual expansion, and all of that goodness. Alana, hello, hi. It is a lunar eclipse today, so it's going to be fun.
Yes, I know. I'm like thinking about, how can I create some ceremony around this eclipse for myself? Because, shit's coming up. But yeah, this is a really cool topic.
Yeah.
It's hard to like convey the benefit of plant medicine ceremony, of ceremony in general, even going to a retreat if you've never done it before. So I think like helping to bridge that gap and like help people understand the benefits of it. And the first one that kind of comes to mind for me is the gift of pause, the gift of that sacred pause. And what I mean by that is we can get so pulled into the gravity of our routines and our daily life. And it becomes so habitual, those neural pathways, they just fire, they just go, you just go through the motions. And before you know it, like years have passed and you still haven't shifted that, that thing that you've been working on for years. So having that pause is just a really beautiful way to dive in deep and break that cycle and say like, okay, like let's focus with our intention and really look at what's at play here. Let's dive beneath the surface into the subconscious of how we've created our reality, our current reality, so we can understand how to go in and, maybe change it a little or reclaim parts of ourselves that we've abandoned even, really, right?
That pattern interrupt, I think, is a really key point because that happens literally in our minds, like what is occurring with our neural pathways, reprogramming, having access to new potential, innovation, and change. And I think that is represented in the macro example of choosing to take yourself out of your life circumstances that has affected, shifted, cultivated, and formed those pathways and put you into that kind of rut. Sometimes in order to work on it, you need to be removed from it. And that is that pattern interrupt, like you were alluding to with the needing that sacred pause, that very potent sacred pause. And it's that space, it's that objectivity, it's the removing yourself from the immediate stimulus. And that is for sure probably the first most clear point that I would see as well when I'm thinking about the benefits or the call to go into ceremony or go into retreat. Even if you look at the word retreat, right, on a battlefield, you are returning to yourself, you're retreating back inward, or you're removing yourself from the situation, the stimulation, the external circumstances and world, and you are retreating.
Yeah, exactly. I love that retreating back into self. Retreating to find reprieve, retreating to find rest, retreating to, to come back to you. I love that. That's beautiful.
And I think this conversation comes up a lot because we've seen spirituality really like commodified these days, right? There's this breathwork course or this thing, etc. We literally host and hold retreats as well. It is especially with the online space, a way that we connect and interact through different modalities. But the ultimate goal, the overarching goal, what is that? Is it to achieve X, Y, and Z with like an entrepreneurial, soul-led, heart-led business? Or are we just looking to be the best versions of ourselves, to show up in the best ways? And when you look at that goal, that's when you begin to realize that there's no right way to reach it. And there are many pathways, which is why I think people often ask, like, well, why plant medicine ceremony? What is it about plant medicine ceremony that works for you? It comes from that place of questioning if it's the only way, because I think we're really used to looking for the quote unquote right way. And I really want to reiterate that there is no one way for spiritual evolution or spiritual expansion, or there's no one way to walk your journey of your human existence. And I think this conversation can really showcase the fact that ceremonial participation in plant medicine, communing with plant spirit medicine, that is just one way to work with, heal, move through, navigate the human experience. It's not the only way. So that's one of the reasons I'm excited that we have this topic on the table, is that it's not the only way, and it might not be your way. And that's also okay too. So having this discussion is very important to help people understand that it might not be your way.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. It's funny because like the irony, I think, of that realization that it's not the only way. Like I feel like it was actually through plant medicine that I realized that, you know, it's like before that I was like, there's gotta be a way. I gotta like align myself. I gotta follow the gurus. I gotta copy what they're doing. I'm gonna do all the things, you know? Because man, I was motivated to make a change and come back into some alignment that felt good. You know, for me, the point of life was really unclear. I felt really disconnected from myself. I felt really like life lacked luster, lacked magic. And plant medicine helped me to find that. And when you find that, you realize that like the only way is your way. And that is the only way, really, right? But I also think that I think sometimes plant medicine can be kind of viewed almost as being like cultish, even in a way, you know, like it's like people who don't know or understand, you know. I've heard that from people who have no idea, you know, and in my world, I feel like I surround myself with so many people that understand what plant medicine is. I can talk about it openly. I can talk about it, and they like, you know, understand what I mean, you know, but from the outside looking in, it's like the sacredness, the magic, the ceremony, it can seem a bit odd, really, right? If you're kind of new to it. But there is so much sacredness in that, like we said, it's like it brings you back to you, to your alignment, to your why, to your purpose. And from there, that gift for me was exactly what I needed to propel me forward in my life.
It puts you in like a deep immersion in spiritual practice. And I think that deep immersion allows for accelerated personal growth and spiritual development. It creates that sacred container for focused work without the distractions, without the input. And I mean, you're totally right. A lot of people will view, everyone has opinions, man. Everyone has thoughts and opinions and judgments on things. And it's really easy, especially something that becomes exciting and new in the mainstream, you know, microdosing mushrooms, working with psilocybin in general is really trending right now. And same with larger, more ceremonial approaches, ayahuasca, for example. It's all gotten really big and exciting. And I think this human need or want to like throw shade or discredit or be skeptical can cause a lot of that kind of like, oh, it's so cultish, it's so X, Y, and Z. And it's like, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater in this situation. And by that, it's interesting to witness people who experience plant medicine be so transformed, so in love, so enamored that they preach it like it's the way, right? And like they've newly discovered this thing, and it usually comes from a very innocent place because they're excited. They feel good. Something's worked, something's clicked, something has shifted for them, and now they're going to tell you from their soapbox why this is the thing. And it's when you get that perspective and you can see that it's an innocent gesture of how much it worked for them, it can be a little easier to sift and sort through the shaft of the wheat there and take away the fact that for some people, this is an incredible pathway, incredible tool. But I mean, at large, in a larger perspective, it's not just plant medicine ceremony, right? We see a rising trend in yoga ceremonies, retreats, I should say, wellness retreats, rewilding retreats. And I mean, for me, it speaks to the fact that humans have really started to notice and realize that what we are living every single day in the middle of a city, going to a rat race on a 9 to 5, we are disconnected from something. And we were trying to retreat back to figure out what the heck we're supposed to be doing. I think it really speaks to, I think that this rising need, want, and desire for ceremony, for retreat, for intentional space to practice connecting. That's it. We're practicing being connected to each other, to source. Sometimes we use plant medicine to help us do that. To ourselves, connected to ourselves. This rising trend in ceremony and in retreat, I think, is a testament to how much people are realizing that they're craving something they don't have access to anymore, that they're disconnected from something that once was a pivotal part of their experience. And for me, that is one of the number one, or maybe number two, reasons that retreat or ceremony in general, whether that's with plant spirit medicine or just hiding in the forest, why that is so important is because it does give you an opportunity to touch back in. It gives you that space to be fully immersed in something that connects you to what is actually real.
Yeah, exactly. It's man, yeah, I love plant medicine. I could so be that. I'm so that person that's like, it's for everybody, but I also know it's not for everybody. But I'm like, yeah, if you could experience what I've experienced, I think for me that also the big thing is just that, you know, I think we don't realize, like, when we say, like, oh, like, find yourself, all these things, like, people will be like, what do you mean? I'm right here. Like, what do you mean? You know, like, it's like the things that keep us disconnected from our heart, from our body. And some people, like, can't remember ever being connected to that. They just kind of, like, don't feel awesome and they don't really know why. Is that, like, these are all subconscious patterns, right? Like, these are all subconscious things that we've created. And it's like, you can't see it until you, like, can zoom out and see that big picture, that from the micro where we're, like, really in our lives and doing the work and doing the things and just, like, going through the motions. It's like, we have to zoom out and be able to say, like, oh, okay, like, I see this. And for me, like, a lot of my subconscious shadows or woundings prevented me from seeing that. And so the beauty for me of plant medicine, and my main teacher is ayahuasca, is that, like, I can't hide from me in that space. You can't hide from me. You can't hide from the plants, It's like you see the truth of what's coming up for you. And yeah, you're forced to work through it in a very similar way that you work through anything in life, but it's very intentional. It's very, like you said, it's focused. It's like space is set for that exact reason.
Yeah. So do you think that it's like that perspective piece that is a really powerful tool? So it's like communing with something outside of you. Is that something that you find with plant medicine that helps give you that perspective?
Yeah, it's like, I think with any, like, they sayings, it's like we don't exist in a vacuum. We have all these relationships in our life. And, like, every relationship, anything that you're relating to, whether it's a person, a plant, a place, an experience, a job, fill in the blank, your body even, really, right? Like, whatever you're relating to, like, those are mirrors into you, into your reality, into the reality that you've created based off of your foundations, based off of your trauma, your wounds, what you were taught as children, what we were taught from society, is like, those are all reflections. And so, like, when we see something outside of ourselves, that's a good way to see us. It's like, if you're by yourself, can you really see yourself? We see ourselves in the earth, like, we exist and are separate from others because we can see the other. Because, I mean, when we get in, and this is getting real esoteric really fast, but, like, we are all one, like, we're all just, source expressing itself from a higher perspective. But, like, and so, like, do we exist? And, we go into philosophy and they talk about these questions. I exist because I am, these kinds of things, really, right? So yeah, I feel like that relationship, but people, like, relationships with people, they're more, I don't know, I guess relationships with plants are also complex, but there's like because they're a plant spirit, because they're kind of closer to source energy than maybe, like, other humans are, we can kind of, like, create patterns where we hide from each other. And it's like, it's hard to interpret. It's hard to see clearly. It's hard to know because, I mean, we're not saying what we mean half the time. We're thinking one thing and saying the exact opposite most of the time, like, we're not in alignment, in authenticity with our communication. And if we were as humans, it would be like, I mean, it would be a totally different world. It would also be probably chaotic because it's like, it's too much to process if people are seeing all these aspects. But what I see in another is exactly what I see in is a projection of myself, right? And so it's the same with plant medicine, really, right? They're showing you. And how else, like, what a better way to do the inner work than, get a picture of like what's actually going on, right?
Mm. It makes me think of the 55th gene key and the shadow frequency of dishonesty, because there is an innate, innocent dishonesty in humans. And I don't mean dishonesty as in like Alana woke up this morning and decided to lie to me about her thoughts on my shirt. It's not that. And we're not talking about these little white lies that people always refer to and associate with morality and such. It's the fact that there is separation between humans, so there's always some kind of distortion in what we put out there. Whether there's a distortion in what I'm saying or a distortion in the way that you hear what I'm saying, there is never quite true intimacy, never true transparency. And when I'm working with plant medicine, maybe I feel like you can maybe relate, is that they are inside of me. I've taken them into my body, and they do not function and or work within the constructs or the limiting patterns or structure that the human mind and our genetics and our evolution have placed on us humans in our brains, and they don't function the way that we do. We often talk about plant medicine not having boundaries or borders. And I also think it's really beautiful that they often function and entirely exist outside of time. And that is another perspective that vastly blows open the human experience, because we are finite. We are mortal. We have brief, beautiful, bright lives that burn hot, burn fast, and burn out. And then we are recycled back again. And I think that perspective, again, and it's looking at the same diamond through 1,000 different facets. When you can work with plant medicine that gives you that mirror, but what they're seeing is not based on that kind of human plane per se. Like they have this access to boundlessness in a way. Like they don't have the mortal 3D flesh effect that we do in our programming. So I can really, I hear what you're saying when it comes to that reflection that they show you. They do, but they do so in such an honest, clear way, because they don't have skin in the game, right? They're not a human interacting with you. They're a plant spirit who has agreed to be of service to the light or to source or to guide or to adjust or to heal or to work in a specific way. And they have their own agenda in a way. And it's interesting to see them so beyond and so outside of the confines of humanity. It gives you such a vastly different perspective, and it reflects such a clear reflection, a shockingly clear reflection often, of what's going on inside of you, because they just don't exist within the same rules. They are playing around in dimensions that we glimpse at and we get to see with them, but they come in and you can't hide. Like you said, there is no space, there's no dishonesty, there's no room for that distortion to occur. There is after the fact, when you're trying to interpret things and you're trying to do a download and journal and understand and make it make sense through the channels of your mind, your flesh human mind that wants to understand, sift, and sort. But on that soul essence level, there's a clarity that can come when working with that plant medicine that takes you outside of the human pattern that you're in. And I think whether we're talking about the medicine ceremony itself or even just retreating from your everyday routine, it is a pattern interrupt. It removes you from what made you the way you are right now. And I think it's perspective. It gives you new eyes. You see things differently. You see yourself differently. And I think for me, it gave me, like you said, it was through plant medicine that you realize that there's multiple ways, because it made me realize that there's different facets to that diamond that I never imagined looking through.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. Like it's the limiting perspectives that like you don't know your limit until you burst through it, really, right? Like it's like you didn't know you were limited until you're no longer limited. You didn't know that you were enslaved until you're no longer enslaved, you know? It's like it's till you have to get through that other side. And so it's again, it's hard to like explain until you've experienced it. So it's like I love that we get to have these conversations, because it's like we're trying to find a way to put words to this so that we can kind of communicate to maybe those who are curious about this path, maybe scared, maybe a little bit like, not sure, and yeah, and like you said, it's not for everybody, and it should be something that is entered into with respect and trust, and with an open heart and with a pure intention. Because if it's not, then like plants, they know, they know,
Yeah, there's no
because of the no
dishonesty.
boundaries. Yeah.
And I think it's so hard. It's really challenging for people who are used to being able to mitigate and manage. And I think that's the loss of control that can be really healing. I don't even think I knew how much control I thought I had until I did plant medicine. And I was like, nope. No, I do not have that. Nothing is sorted in a bag. Nothing is labeled. There is no lid on any box. And I don't know what I'm doing. And that is, super freeing. And I think there's a certain vein. We often we try and tentatively oh, you shouldn't be afraid. It's just blah, blah, blah. Part of me feels like maybe you should be afraid. The
Yeah.
mystery is scary. And that, there's a frequency of fear, of course. And I'm not saying live your life afraid and don't do it because you're scared. Don't give in to the fear, but acknowledging that fear is there and doing it with bravery in your heart and courageously is just as powerful and potent as not being afraid at all. So I think becoming quick friends with that fear. Something else I wanted to bring up too, though, about ceremony and why you would participate in ceremony. We've talked about that perspective and that reprieve from life, being removed from the situations so that you can get a better, clearer look at the dynamic, whether it's an outward situation or maybe your internal dynamic. Is it gives you this capacity for curiosity, this investigative discovery pursuit. I really associate that strongly personally for me with my inner child, this bright-eyed wonder of enjoying the mystery when there's innocence and you're not so scared, right? Like there's the innocence, the I don't know what I'm doing and that's okay, the trusting in the plant medicine and in the universe. A lot of those things start to emerge when you say yes once or twice. And that's maybe not yes to the ceremony or yes to plant medicine, but when you trust the mystery a few times, you start to get this pull for curiosity. And I think that can really be brought on through ceremony, through facing a fear and being positively rewarded, being outside of your comfort zone. And again, whether we're talking about retreat and ceremony with plant medicine, you can apply this to a ceremony where you're drinking cacao and it's not necessarily hallucinogenic, or you're going to an ecstatic dance and you're going to dance boldly and be authentically yourself. There is levels of vulnerability in that we're not used of per se, and that can be a challenge and it can be scary and it can require bravery. And even in of that, when you are rewarded positively for that, as in you have a good time, you meet people, you learn something about yourself, you shift an emotion, it lights a curiosity inside of you. It's, hey, I've danced with the mystery, I've tried something different. And I think that can be really empowering and healing. And that subtle shift there is what can allow you to take the ceremonial mindset and the ritualistic approach and apply it to your everyday life outside of being in retreat or in ceremony. It starts to leak back over into your everyday life. And I think that can be that mindset change, that investigative curiosity, trusting those triggers to teach, trusting that juiciness to lead you somewhere and to dance with that mystery. When you acquaint yourself with that, I think your life can really change. And that's been a huge blessing and gift that I've gotten from choosing to show up in ceremony.
Oh, I can so relate to that. Yeah, it's like we've talked about this before, but just that like the idea like when you're grown up, you're all grown up and you don't have anything else to learn. And like when you're kids, it's like, there's this thirst for knowledge. It's like, I want to learn more. I gotta know more. I need to learn about this. I want to learn about this. And it's like as we get older and we get like into our routines and maybe we get settled into a career and start having, I would say having a family, I think you get to learn more because your kids are going through phases. But yeah, like, we can get just so caught up in like doing the same thing, and it's great because you're kind of like maybe getting some mastery and new skills and things like that, and you're, mastering your life in certain ways. But that plant medicine takes you to your edge. It really takes you to that edge, that fear, like you said, and it just like it allows you to go beyond that, and that like that feeling of curiosity, of like the explorer kind of archetype, the adventurer, like it's for me what life is all about, like for me it's like you said, it's become like a practice, in a way, like I just it's a part of who I am now. It's my life is to learn and grow and move forward and evolve and to experience, and that's exciting. But yeah, when you're applying it to spirituality, to your inner world, to yeah, like there is, I think, innately a fear there. And it's like, I get it. Cause I think before I engaged with plant medicine, like my story is like several years, I had multiple like plants were like, here's an opportunity, here's an opportunity, here's an opportunity. I'm like, I'm gonna go to Vegas instead. I'm gonna go do this instead. I'm gonna go do anything else, right? And then finally, when I was ready, I was like, okay, I can't. When the time was right, I really felt like I needed it, and I was like, okay, here we go, we're going for it. And yeah, there was so much courage and so much bravery that I needed to have there. And yeah, it's just it's quite the path once you start walking it, and it becomes like so much more. Like we don't learn about spirituality in school. We don't learn, like we go to the dentist for our teeth. We do, we do our taxes. We do all these things that like, like take care of ourselves and our bodies and stuff like that. But like, do we really tend to working on our inner self? I think it's obviously it's a huge trend, like a trend in a good way, that we're kind of moving in this direction as a collective, but there's still, it's still, there's resistance to it there. And I get it. It's sticky. It's hard. It's hard to look at yourself. It's hard to see things that we don't want to see because we have to confront the ego. We have to confront limiting beliefs. We have to confront so many aspects of ourself. And, confrontation is not something we're really like great at as a society. Like we're doing as a collective, we're not really, we're still learning that. Like I love your saying that you say all the time, like we're all just babies, and like that's true. And there's so much innocence in that. And why can't we all just be like going through life and learning and like, hey, I didn't know that. Oh shit, I did this and I made you upset. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, that wasn't my intention. But like, maybe I'll reflect on that and see how, if I need to show up differently or whatever that is, I think it's been, I can't even imagine my life without it for that exact reason that you mentioned, that curiosity that gets lit up.
Yeah, and I think that it's a do you put the horse before the cart kind of dynamic. It could be either or, whether you have that curiosity that has been triggered in your life and it leads you to ceremony, or
Yeah.
if you maybe are in crisis or something, go to ceremony and then discover this curiosity. What I think ends up happening with this intentional play with belief and with mindset and with our mental patterning, because that's what I think is happening really when we're in ceremony with plant medicine, when we're on a dedicated spiritual path, we're playing with our mental constructs and our egos. And I think by that, I mean we're sometimes completely unraveling them and dissolving them because they no longer serve utterly, or they're getting small shifts, small pivots, different perspectives. But you can't shift something if you can't see it. And I think that's why I go into ceremony, working with plant medicine gives you that perspective to see things that you could not see before. And then once you see it, you're already halfway there, you know, and recognizing it and identifying it. And then we get to play with those belief systems, those patterns, those things that we have chosen to identify as, whether that's subconsciously when we were younger or subconsciously now. I identify as things subconsciously all the time. Uh, Hanging on to those belief systems that have formed and created the world and the life that we live in, when we're removed from those patterns and we have the objectivity, the different perspective, the different sight given to us by working or communing with plant medicine, or insane and intense and intentional breath work, or cold plunges, it gives you the curiosity, the capacity, and the willingness to co-create and to play with that mental realm. So if someone was to ask me why plant medicine ceremony or why go to a retreat, um, it's because it gives me people, community, first of all, who think the same way or similar ways that I do, who can acknowledge that there are patterns that we can shift and change that would then subsequently change our lives. And because it's an intentional space, and the intentionality and the time and the sacredness and the ritual aspect of it, we've talked about this before. What is a ritual? What is ceremony? The ritualistic and intentional setting aside of time to connect with self and practice is something that is very potent in my life. Whether that is like how I stir my coffee in the morning, I talk about it all the time, finding the magic in the mundane, or a large financial commitment, time commitment, intentional pivot, life planning involved. That is a sacrifice in a way, an intentional offering to a level of sacredness and intention and seriousness and respect and responsibility, and that makes it even more potent. And I think that's why going to retreat, leaving my life, I'm sacrificing comfort and ease. I'm removing myself from certain dynamics, and I'm choosing to show up in a certain environment to challenge myself, to show up, to show that I'll show up. That's a big part of it for me as well. What do I need to do in order to be fit for ceremony? That's a conversation we have often. It's that dedication and intentional seriousness. It's like a pilgrimage. It's an act of showing, of worship, I guess, not of worship of the plant spirit medicine that you're communing with, but of intentional reverence and celebration and worship and honor and pilgrimage. And it's the
Like you
act
matter.
of going. It's the act of doing it.
Yeah.
I'm here to do
You
this
matter.
with you.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think like I love that saying. I'm gonna probably butcher it, but it's like, that saying when you say like, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. So you could say like, I don't have time to do spiritual work, and it's like what that really means is it's not a priority, right? And so it's like I think like the act of going to ceremony or retreat is like you're prioritizing you. You're prioritizing your life. You're prioritizing, like you said, this like brief moment of existence that we have here on earth. And you're like, you're going all in on it. And like, you're really living life. You're really making it all about, what's really important. You're aligning really, right? And, I think that's, to me, that's the sacredness. It's like I'm telling myself that I matter and that like my desires matter, my heart matters, my soul matters. I'm meant to be here. And like I'm willing to see and engage with life in whatever way that looks like. And for me, with plant medicine, it's been it's helped to align me more to that. Whereas I feel like maybe in the past I felt a little more aimless and maybe lost and caught up in things that maybe didn't really matter so much, prioritizing things that in the big scheme of things really don't matter and weren't in alignment, and maybe we're self-sabotaging in nature as well.
Mm-hmm. We've touched on, we mentioned fear and like trusting a little bit there. And I think something else that plant medicine in particular does is it dissolves your separateness. It gives you a glimpse behind the scenes of me thinking that I'm separate from you, Alana, or from anyone listening or watching to this podcast episode. When you work with plant medicine, of course, depending on the medicine you're working with, but they all show you, but they'll show you in different ways. But they really take away, like we said, there's no boundaries. And to acknowledge that fear, though, when you let that ego die and you let those boundaries dissolve with that plant medicine, you now remember that you're also sacred. You're also, you deserve reverence from yourself and others, right? There's that connection. Is like, you are the divine. You are part of the divine. You are a ray of the sunshine. If the sunshine is all of life, creation, universe, and or God, however you want to put it, you are a part of that sunshine. You are a ray of sunshine, a very specific note to that melody or orchestra of life, right? And I think that's a beautiful gift that plant medicine in particular can grant you, because they don't have boundaries and because they photosynthesize like mad, and they're used to being in one with that transmuting, connecting energy that is nature. I think personally, side tangent, personal belief that being disconnected from nature and believing we're separate is one of the biggest diseases in our world. And plant medicine is such a reconnector. It's like getting plugged back into mama, because they are not separate. They know they're not separate. They know you're not separate. And they're just like, hey, remember, yeah, you might be scared. That's all of the mind. It's very human of you. How human of you to be fearful of the mystery and the unknown. But just remember that you are powerful, you're connected, you're a co-creator, you're creating your world, you're showing up, whether you're aware of it or not. You have affected and will continue to affect your own existence. And it's very interesting. That's one that I spiral with a lot.
Well, I think it's funny you say that, because it's like, I think like you can't really, consume plant medicine and not have a lesson about nature. Like it's just like you're right.
No.
It's all part and parcel. I mean, everything is when you really start looking at it. But yeah, plants hold this beautiful wisdom, and that they are, just like you said, so in tune with nature. They're in flow with it. They are nature, and they hold that wisdom. And so yeah, they're great teachers in that way of teaching us, which as a collective, let's be honest, we're so out of tune with nature. We are, taking too much from the earth. We're not giving back. We're not in flow with our resources. We prioritize the wrong things, and they hold this key, this medicine for us to learn from them. And that's incredible. Even the imagery, the fractals, it's like they kind of give you a glimpse into how the universe is structured even at times, and everybody has a different experience. I'm just speaking more from my limited perspective of my own. But yeah, no, it's to remember that we are one with nature, and that we are divine, and that we are greater than this human vessel as well too, is some of the things that I've definitely realized from plant medicine too.
It's a commonly shared sentiment that after someone does plant medicine, they're quote unquote a nicer person, or they have more compassion or love, right? And I think it is that. It's that they realize you're not separate. Hurting someone else
Yeah.
inevitably is hurting you. And you can get really hung up on the little nuances, semantics of that statement. But in the grand scheme of things, I think we all come from the same place. We all go back. And plant medicine pulls that veil off real clearly. And you're like, oh no, we're all one. We're in this together. We're all the same. And when I say we, I mean you and the plants too, you and the trees, you and the earth. And I think that's one of the things too. If for those of you who don't know, when you work with ayahuasca, for example, is the one I'm thinking of in particular right now, time really doesn't exist and time dissolves. And I think time is one of the things that anchors us into the 3D as humans, right? It keeps us really firmly planted in this dimension. If there's time, there's space, there's laws around this. We won't go too much into it. But if you dissolve time and if you remove time, you're not really held in the 3D anymore. You're quite beyond that at that point. And I think plant medicine can do that for you. It can bring you outside of time and then bring you outside of this 3D construct, this mind, this Maya, dare I say, matrix that we all choose, this shared reality we choose to participate in. It can bring you up and out of that. And when you are up and out of that, time no longer is existing. And that's what gives you that opportunity in a way to go back and so fully process, feel, release, and free yourself from things that have previously held you stuck in your body, in your life, through pain or wounding or trauma, or however you want to word it, whatever fancy terms the most trending these days, ancestral trauma, pick it, whatever you want to talk about it. Being able to be removed from that time, which is a very incredible gift from plant medicine, can plop you right back into the middle of whatever you need to be working on, process it, address the issue, see it, seal it up, send it on its way, and you're back to source, love, creation, God, all is good and light again. And it is not that easy. I'm making it sound very easy. And that's a heavy journey in and of itself, and you have to feel those feelings. But that removal of time aspect is another incredible gift, specifically very accessible to you through plant medicine. They can bring you up and out of the confines of the 3D, and they can play with time because time no longer exists. And then you can fix, look at, unpack, feel, and process things that have been up until now maybe repressed or locked away or unreachable because you've been having to work to get there through the constructs of the Maya or the mind or the matrix. I feel like YouTube's going to get mad at me for that word.
Love it. Yeah, no, it's definitely like the like human world, the Maya, the matrix, it's dense, right? Like it's like we're just so dense. And so like when you have this plant medicine ceremony, we come out so much lighter because we've like you said, you've glimpsed that. You went to Spirit, you traveled there, and you kind of get to see like the other ways, other pathways of like of living, of seeing possibilities and openings and just like that, like the coming back to the heart, like that, like out of the mind, coming back into the body, back to the heart, back into like where these feelings, where these trapped emotions, all these things that this beautiful vessel, this body that we have, these human bodies, they're like such beautiful, intelligent pieces of technology, you know, like, and it's made from Mother Earth. It's made from nature. So it's like we are one with that, and we have all this wisdom within us. It's just, can we go in and see it? And then the irony is, you know, we spend most of our lives, and even me going to a plant medicine ceremony, I'm going outside of myself to go back into myself is the irony of it, really, right?
100%. That
Yeah.
saying, like, the longest journey you'll ever take is from your heart to from your head into your heart. Yeah, and I guess I maybe should clarify. When I say you're going up and out, I don't mean you're actually, well, maybe you are. Depends on who you are and how you journey. But a lot of that up and out is just up and in, you know? You're not but it's Alice in Wonderland. It's curiouser and curiouser. There's discovery, inquiry, weirdness, and that curiosity. It inevitably taps you back into that inner child, because your heart is so authentically tied to just your soul and your essence. It's this vastness of you. And I think it gets related to our inner children, because that's the last time most of us really sat in the pool of ourselves, you know? We had uninhibited access to our essence up until we're 7, usually, somewhere around there. Something happens, some tweaks go on, things get messy and muddy, but this curiouser and curiouser, I'm in Alice in Wonderland now in my mind, sorry. But that Cheshire cat, you're following, what doesn't matter which way you go if you don't know where you're trying to get. And it's just like, ain't that the dang truth? It doesn't matter what path. It doesn't matter if you choose plant medicine ceremony, to be honest. Back to the topic, I guess, of the podcast. I don't know if I'm tangenting off, but it doesn't matter if you choose mushrooms or ayahuasca or psilocybin. It doesn't matter. Or DMT, whatever, pick a thing. Or don't pick a thing. Never do it. That also doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, if you don't know where you're trying to get, it doesn't matter what path you take. And there's an incredible freeing wisdom to that. A lot of people who don't like trusting the mystery can get frustrated with things like that. It's like, okay, yeah, but how do I get there? And I'm that person. I can say that confidently, because that is me. Sometimes I would really like to know if I go left or right here, please. Thank you. But no, where are you trying to get? What are you trying to discover? You don't know who you are or what you want to do or who you want to be or what you want to create. If that's you, that's okay. Then it doesn't matter what path you take to try and get there. And I think to a certain degree, that was part of the energy that I had behind choosing to work with plant medicine. I don't know what's down this rabbit hole. I didn't know. And ever since I've been on that path now, it has been another rabbit hole and another rabbit hole and another rabbit hole. And it's that curiouser and curiouser inner child-like discovery and exploration that, especially if you're working with psilocybin, they will also skip along with you as you just discover and learn and explore and undo and redo and relearn. And it's so non-morally driven. It's not right or wrong, or, you know, it's all experiential. You're here to experience it all. And I think that ceremony is a good container for that. It's a safe container to explore that.
Absolutely.
If you're in a safe ceremony container.
Yes. And we do have our preparation for ceremony course, which does talk about setting and safety in there too. And it is important that you choose wisely who you're sitting with, that you feel safe with them, you know them, their values align, because when we are in plant medicine ceremony, you know, we're open, like there's no boundaries, but our energy fields are also burst wide open. And so like who you're with, you know, you're learning from them, you're feeling their vibrations and the people holding the space, you know, as well. So yeah, that for the most part, it's funny, you know, you're holding space with plant medicine. It's like, you know, I'm not the main event, you know, it's like I'm just here as the bridge between the two. And so like usually the plants, when used appropriately with appropriate intention, are going to, you know, they run the show. They know better. They know more. Like, you know, like they're the ones in control of the ceremony. And it's a co-creation with each individual participant, each person going in with their intention of what they want to work on. They're going on their little hero's journey within that space. And, you know, hopefully coming out with some great wisdom, or having cleared out or released energies that are dense from their bodies. And that is like one of the big things I find for sure is like, again, just back to that density, is just like you feel lighter and more open. Your heart's more accessible. You can touch into those vulnerable spaces within your being that are expansive, that just like feel good to lean into, you know, like a warm hug from a loved one, but like times 10. And then you can kind of like, you bring that with you outside of your ceremony and you realize, oh, that's what life's about. And then you try to create more of that. We try to integrate that, and we try to bring more spirit into physical form, more of you into physical form, into the 3D, so we can create a new earth. We can create a new world, because we get so caught up looking at, oh, it's this and that and blaming and all the other thing, and this needs to change and that needs to change. It's like, no, like the only thing that needs to change is you. That's all a reflection of you. So if you go in and you decide, like, you see what's going on out here and you come in and like you do the work for you, if we all just did our inner work, the world couldn't help but change. It would.
Mhm. Yeah, it's that density is a good point. It is, and I always feel like I have to bring this up, but when we say dense, we don't mean negative. It's not morally corrupt or wrong or blah blah blah. And the world really likes to hang on to that lately. Dense is just physical. It's just literal. When we say dense, we literally mean energetically dense. Like the electrons are close together, so it's become closer and closer to mass, to solid mass. Like if we want to get sciencey about it, that's what we mean by dense. And the higher, the faster, and the more, and the space and the expansion. It's why we talk about expansion. You're expanding. Anyway.
The universe is
When you are
expanding. We know
working,
that. We are with the universe, so
yeah,
we're also expanding. Yeah.
yeah. It's like we can get really macro and micro with it, but it's immense amount of effort. And when you work with plant medicine, I don't know if I'm getting really abstract with my analogies here, but when you work with plant medicine, it's like you have a lantern and say ayahuasca is lighting up your path with a different type of light that you've not looked at that path with before. Maybe you had a flashlight before and it was really tunnel vision, and then ayahuasca comes in and now she's a lantern and she sheds more light on what's on the side of your path. She is not giving you a path. This is very important, and hopefully my analogy holds out here, but ayahuasca is not laying that path down for you. This plant spirit is not coming in and giving you life purpose. This plant spirit is not coming and making you who you are or healing you for you. They are here to lend their light, their essence, their lantern effect. They give you this perspective, this lightness. Plant medicine, because you're not walking in the dark alone anymore. You have a companion. You are someone who has walked hundreds and hundreds of people down a path, down their path. They have journeyed and traveled, and they continue to be open to journey and traveling with humans to help in our evolution, to help free us from things. You don't think that ayahuasca could make a subtle shift to the way that she shows up for our spiritual expansion, and humans would no longer want to participate with her? You don't think that she has the capacity to not show up for you? There is really subtle ways that working with psilocybin or ayahuasca or plant medicine is an aid to you on your path. They have chosen to lighten the load of traversing very dense energies. They bring that light, that space, that expansion, and they bring that experience and that knowledge, which is why when you are co-facilitating, like Alana said, you're facilitating, and I say co-facilitating because I don't even feel like we're facilitating. Like it's you, we hold that light container, man, and we are it's not about us at all. It's all you. It's all you. And that is, I think, what I hope to really drive home with this very complicated lantern analogy. I hope you guys followed me on that little journey. But what I hope to drive home by that is that it's not ayahuasca fixing you. Mushrooms will not change you and fix you. Washuma is not going to come in there and fix your heart for you. They have all of the love, all of the lessons, all of the patience, and all of the time for you to walk with you, to hold your hand, to shed light, to journey with you, to show and share and teach and be present with you, which I think is really half the battle, to be honest. It comes down to you. And I think the choice to go to ceremony will also come down to you. I think learning to retreat and understanding what going to retreat means, it comes down to you. And that's why this path can be really hard. And I think that's why our society is maybe facing some issues around conceptualizing and working with plant medicine on a larger scale, and why this trend is proving to have some stickiness that we have to transmute and move through. Integration is a big fucking conversation. And I think that there's going to be a lot of mud thrown onto the name of plant medicine until we get on board with the fact that it's not about the plant medicine, it's about you and you doing your work. And I love that you brought up that we have how to prepare for plant medicine ceremony course, and it is free. And it's free because Alana and I really believe in what is in that course being of extreme value in the world these days. We talk about preparing your mind, body, your spirit, the whole 9 yards, because that preparation process and that integrity and that sacredness in the way that you show up to do this type of work and the integration that is required of you for it to be effective afterwards is where I think the pivot on the little pivot point on our teeter-totter is right now. We want to find that balance there and not rely on ceremony or retreat or plant medicine to fix us or to be that pill, because it is not. That is not what ceremony is, and that's not what retreat is going to do for you.
Yeah, 100%. It's like they're opening the door so you can make a different choice. They're making you see clearly so you can make a different choice, really, right?
Yeah. This is the path that you're on. Do you see what you are doing?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Let's look over here then.
Yeah. This is what you need to see clearly now. And I find for me, sometimes it's because in ceremony, I'm sure you feel the same, as like a lot's happening kind of all at once. And I love how like the kind of same theme will kind of come around multiple times in different ways. It shows me it from like all angles. And then it's like once I've it's almost like I'm looking at a gem and I'm seeing it from all the different angles. And then at one point, once I've seen it all, it's like, and then there's this big, I get it. And they're like, yeah, you got it. Like, great. Now you see, now you know.
100%. 100%. You just have to follow the white rabbit enough times. And then you're like, I see. Literally the beginning of the Matrix. My brain is just in Alice in Wonderland in the Matrix now.
I like
it. Trust the next step. Trust the path. Trust the next step. Follow the right rabbit. Go around this corner. Take a right at the tree. Okay, and we've arrived. And I get it. And once you get it, the beauty thing that I find, at least, is once you get it, it's yours now. Like there's a conceptualization and an integration that begins. It becomes knowledge and wisdom. It becomes earned. It becomes experientially gained, right? It becomes part of you when you click in a certain way. And you're entirely right. There's been quite a few times where I've been deep in this process and struggling, right? Like running that wheel of like, it's not making sense. I don't understand. What is wrong? Am I doing this? And that's where suffering comes in, by the way. That's where some really bad experiences when you're working with plant medicine, really hard and challenging experiences can come up when you're really stuck somewhere, right? And you're just like, it's not shifting and you're not getting it. They don't necessarily lighten up on you until you get it or until something switches and pivots. And it can be so tiny. And then if it's ayahuasca, you'll just be like, yeah, there you go. Told you. That was it. That's all I was trying to show you. You just had to get that thing. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to feel the daisies. Oh, we're good. Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, you're right. Exactly. It can be your own personal version of hell when you start to see the way the workings of your mind and the way that you can get stuck into a loop, into a pattern. And, you feel like you're trapped really, like, because that is kind of what happens with our thought patterns and our, the way our neural pathways work in our brain is they loop, they run automatically, and so it's like, it is like you're trapped. And that's why like doing the inner work and changing things can be so hard. And I think why a lot of people like don't really engage in it, they're kind of like, oh, like, I don't know, how do you do that? It's like, it's a concept that's can be very, just vague really. Right. But yeah,
we're so used to being told. We're so used to like, this will help you. If you do this, you'll get this.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now that there's no one out there who's going to be able to look at you and say, if you sit with mushrooms, this is what's going to happen in your experience. That is never going to happen. They don't know. There's what's going to happen is you're going to have an experience that is utterly unique to you. And it's going to be a dynamic experience between you and plant spirit medicine, psilocybin, and you are going to discover and or learn something. Whether you're willing to embrace that and utilize it later is also up to you, but it'll be there as an opportunity and an offer. That's about as specific as you can get. This is not going to be take this pill, you'll get this response. And I think that really, like you said, really unnerves people.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that uncertainty is challenging. And it's a lot. But it's great. It's awesome in so many ways. And in so many ways, it's terrifying and scary. But as is life, as is a spiritual journey, I love looking at ceremony as maybe retreat, more so ceremony. Like it's like, that's like an analogy of how life is really, right? It's like, what if we approach life as a ceremony for those who've experienced ceremony before? What if we approach life with that level of intention and sacredness in all things, in all times? Just think of how different your world might be. And again, that comes back to that same that same thing we've been saying all along is like, you don't have to do plant medicine. There's so many other ways to do this. For me, plant medicine was leaps and bounds though. Like for me, it was like the amount of work I probably would have taken me a lifetime, maybe I could do in, a couple years of integration, or maybe,
Yeah.
probably still
You hear
integrating
people say
aspects of
that
those
lots.
ceremonies. Yeah.
Yeah, that floats around there a lot. Like, oh, it took me 4 years with talk therapy to get to this, and that's because you're still working within the constructs of the mind. Like I mentioned earlier, right? You're using the tools that dug the hole that you're in to try and dig out of the hole, and it can work, and it just takes longer, right? And some people, there's purists out there who say it doesn't really count unless you're doing that kind of arduous, human only, self taught. And there's been moments in my own journey where I have had to learn lessons specifically that way, and I would refuse to work with plant medicine that on those topics or those areas or those specific lessons, I should say. But it's definitely, I don't want to say a shortcut because it's still a journey unto itself, but it's its own, yeah, the time piece really just switches up there.
Yeah. Yeah, like what you said earlier, it's like a portal to another dimension that, like, it's where time doesn't exist, and you can,
Let's just take you right out of the 3D, baby.
Yeah. It's all
because if you take
accessible
away
now.
time,
yeah,
without getting too esoteric, but if you take away time, then there's no distance, right? Like, and then it's the same thing. If you take away that distance, there's no time in that dynamic. So everything is happening right now, and you don't have to wait to quote unquote manifest or to shift or to pivot. You make automatic changes now, here, because there's no time, there's no later. Like, it's, I guess you could say it's a very easy, not easy, but it is a very big shortcut. And it is very intense and serious. And I think when things become trendy, whether I think it's good or bad that they are becoming trendy, people can lose sight of the seriousness, the sacredness, the fact that I would like to once again reiterate that this is not for everybody. There are people out there who should never do plant medicine.
100%. Yeah, there's some different people, different personality disorders that are contraindicated, in fact, for quite a few plant medicines. And so, yeah, it's not for everybody. And, if it's, you have to decide if you want to try it, if it's for you. And, obviously, like, it's, sit with people who know the ins and outs of who it's good for and who it's not. But yeah, it's kind of like how all people aren't for everybody. Like, not all plants are for everybody. I mean, it's like, you can't be like, plant medicine's not for you. I mean, like, we eat plants. We breathe oxygen. Plants are like, we can't exist without them. The reality is we have this beautiful symbiotic relationship with plants in nature that you can't deny. So it's like, like to be like, oh, I don't do that. Like, I feel like carnivores are probably like the closest to carnivore. The carnivore trend's probably the closest to being like, I deny all plants, but, there's still the oxygen piece. You better never
take any pharmaceuticals or any Tylenol or any, because that's a willow tree, dude. So you don't get that either.
Yes, exactly, right? Like, I think, like, you're exactly. Most of the medicines, it's so interesting, most of the medicines that we have, even in today's pharmaceutical, the constituents come from plants at some level, where we've learned to synthesize them to, and so it's like, that, like, we've learned that from them. So there's more wisdom that we've learned from plants in that way.
I love that you bring that up, because that was my introduction to plant medicine. And I think that it's really funny that we have pigeonholed the phrase plant medicine to refer to psychedelics, or healing modalities, ceremonial approaches to like larger intentional work with plant spirits. Sometimes we'll call it specifically plant spirit medicine to even hone it in a little bit more. But that was my first introduction, is just working with teas, gardening, herbal blends. And it's that there's a concept that I've been really liking to contemplate lately, just about falling, and how what happens is when you trip and you fall, first of all, fear response, scary, unknown, falling, there's a descent. And then after a certain point, that descent turns into momentum, because now you have built up speed, and then momentum culminates into change. And that is how I feel like I literally fell into plant medicine, through discovering just herbal remedies, gardening. Why do I want to grow lavender? Why do I want to do this? Everything does something. Everything has an interaction. Everything is in relationship to you. And that's that principle that I always bring up, no matter what we're talking about. I have a friend who makes fun of me for it, actually. We're not separate from nature. And I think that if humans were just to slow down enough to understand that, and I mean really understand that, we would solve a lot of the world's problems. I will die on that hill. But falling into plant medicine and the discovery of it for me was like that tripping and falling into the unknown, building up that momentum, and then turning that into change, discovery, and like that curiosity that ends up happening. Because now we're moving, we're rolling, we're doing something. What's happening?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and you develop that relationship with that curiosity. I think like the plant spirits, again, they're so much higher than our lower spiritual shadows and emotions. Like they exist above that, you know? So it's like if you're approaching them with love and with respect and with intention, is like they respond to that because that's like their language, really, right? Like they respond to love. They respond to these things. They don't respond to being used. They don't respond to, you know, so it's like even if you got your lavender tea, for example, you know, like if you're just like, oh, I'm just like, I don't know, I'll just take this and use it. It's like, no, like, it's like, you know, be curious. Like, how does it make me feel? Oh, it's coming into my body. It's a relationship. How does it, do I feel more calm? Do I feel this? Do I feel that? You know, like, cause it's about how it's relating to you, not just, oh, lavender helps me relax. Cause that's when people use for that really, right? It's kind of brings in again that sacredness of this practice of ceremony, of retreat, of working with plant medicine. It can be brought into your everyday life with plants, with your food, with whatever, you know, just this, oh, this is grateful. How does this make me feel? Curiosity in the moment. Oh, like I ate that food. How do I feel after I ate that food? Not just, I'm gonna just eat this because somebody told me it's good for me, or I'm gonna eat this because it's delicious or whatever, really, right? It's just, it's contemplative. It's more of a dance. It's more, give and take, you know. People like to talk, I know some of my mentors will say like, plants are they like it when we consume them. They like it when we're, you know, they like to work with us because they're also learning what it's like to be human. They're learning about our bodies. They're learning about our beings and how they can support and how they can bring more love to, you know, that's something that I feel very strongly is like, you know, there's a curiosity. The plants bring a curiosity when they're in ceremony too. They want to engage with you. And, you know, again, like you said, not all plants are for everybody. And there's a boundary there. You know, you be discerning about who you let into your house and what you let into your house, into your body. But yeah, it's, there's also a symbiotic relationship there. You know, you look in nature, we excrete a lot of carbon dioxide. Plants use carbon dioxide to make oxygen. Oh, look, we use that oxygen, you know, like it's all a cycle that kind of constantly repeats itself.
Yeah. We are not separate. We are no more disconnected from this earth than the dang dandelion, darling.
Yes, so true. No, yeah, and it's so easy to forget that when we're just caught up on our computers, on our devices, doing our work, caught in the cities, you know, disconnected from nature. Oh, there's a tree, but it's planted in a way that's like, you know, like confined. It's not naturally growing in nature. And yeah, I think we're all being called right now to turn back to nature, obviously, for obvious reasons, if you just look at the world. So it's very important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to round it out, we go to ceremony because it's practice for life. Because it gives you a small micro example of the way you can move in your life and the power of what bringing awareness and intention into your life can do. Or I should say, maybe that's why I go to ceremony.
I agree. That's 100% why I go to ceremony too. It wasn't like the initial reason by any means of the imagination, you know, but like
we always have a calling to quote unquote fix something or address something or to learn something, but it's like it's been fun having this conversation because like you get to look at it like, why do we do this in general? Like as a species, what is it about ritual and ceremony, intentionality that is so potent for us? Why do we crave this? Because humans, if you look at the history, humans have always had celebrations and ceremonies and rituals and structure around worship or sacredness or reverence to usually and originally just the earth, natural systems, the sun, the seasons, right? And there's that connectivity. It brings us back to connection and awareness and intention.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I know. I wasn't like 100% sure exactly where this conversation was going to go, but I feel like that sums it up pretty good. It's beautiful. I highly recommend if anybody is curious about plant medicine ceremony to, you know, do some research, get curious. You can meet the plant spirits without actually even taking them if you get, you know, really in tune and open to those realms. They start working with you before you even sit for ceremony, you know. So it's, like lean in, be curious. How do I feel about this plant? Oh, let me read about it, look it up, see what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our course on how to prepare for plant medicine ceremony, it covers all of that. So
Yes.
it's a free course. Highly recommend. It talks about meeting and communing with plant spirit medicine before you have ingested anything. It's loaded actually. There's videos we've made for all of it. So it's a free offering. It's available. The link will be in the description below, whether you are on Spotify or if you're watching this on YouTube. Remember, guys, if you could subscribe, like, comment below, let us know if you're considering journeying in ceremony with plant medicine. Let us know if we swayed you either way. The intention, of course, is always just to share our experiences and hopefully empower you to make educated decisions. If you have any questions, let us know. You can always email us. You can comment. We would love to discuss with you what's going on in your life. Our website is also below as well. So if you're wanting any other information, our blog is there. There will be a blog to accompany this podcast. We have a lot of resources building. We've started to, this is what, the 7th or 8th episode of The Sacred Seed?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we're starting to amass quite a library of podcast episodes and blogs. So if you are working with plant medicine, if you have questions about plant medicine, there's a lot of resources there. So hopefully you'll be able to find something that empowers you and helps shine a light on your path. Other than that, good luck with the eclipse season that's going on. Happy April. I believe that is when this podcast is going to be live, and we will see you all back here next time for another episode. Thanks, Alana.
Thanks.
Boom.
Boom. Done like dinner.